Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be reacting to some more wansee entertainment. As you can see, it's this channel right here. This is how it's spelled. I'll give you a few minutes to copy it down or whatever you want, or just to look at it. 3 hours ago they posted I met a guy on the road who had no head. Seems pretty interesting.
My name is Jonathan. I live in an average apartment. There are main roads via my apartment, but there's also a shortcut too, which makes it faster to go to one of my friends, Nick's house.
Yeah.
However, the weird thing was that nobody used...
Hey Layla.
Yeah?
I need to do your hair.
I'm trying to film!
Next time write something on put a sign up.
Okay. Anyways, back to the video.
This is the road. I didn't know until I saw something on it that very day. One day, I went to visit Nick as usual. We played some kinds of games together in his house, having snacks.
Shitbag.
The outside had become dark, and when I looked at the time, it was almost 10 p.m. Then my mom called me to get back home as soon as possible. She seemed like she got mad, so I packed my stuff quickly.
I just saw
I
sweat
got out of my
drip down
friend's
his head.
house, walked for like 2 minutes, and then I decided to walk through that shortcut lane this time. Because it was completely dark, it gave me a chill, but I was in a rush. So I lighted my phone's flash and walked through the road. It was a straight road and all the leaves and bushes were on the two sides. And the next moment became the most terrible memory for my entire life. While I was walking alone, my phone's battery suddenly died. Holy crap, I mumbled to myself. But at that moment, I was so freaked out. I made my pace quicker when I heard someone's footsteps. When I looked up, there was a figure in front of me that was almost black and invisible. All lampposts in that road were broken except 2 of them. But those 2 lampposts were flickering continuously, and the figure was slowly walking closer to my
I
side.
could have said no head O.
When the light fell on his face, I could see him, full of scars on his face. He had a cut in his throat, and the blood is falling out of his cut. I tried to ask him if he needed any help, but then he put his hand on top of his head slowly, and he picked it up. I could see his head was dividing from his body, and he was just standing there,
Is it
holding his head in
stretching?
one hand and looking straight into my
Or
eyes.
is it just...
I couldn't even move because I was so terrified at that moment. All of a sudden, his head was laughing loudly and gave a shriek loudly at the very next. I stepped back, and then he came in front of me again with big strides. This time, I could see those 2 lampposts which were flickering above him all went out. And I don't remember anything after that. The next morning when I woke up, I was in a hospital. It turned out that some guy who was jogging around found me unconscious on that road. My mother was sitting next to me with an anxious look, so I told her my entire experience. When I finished telling her, she seemed a little surprised, and then she patted my back. She told me that there was a man who was murdered and beheaded by some gang members on that road a few years ago, but the police could neither find his head nor the criminal. Since then, lots of people saw the same stuff as me, so they stopped using that road. Even now, whenever I go to my home, I still ignore that frightening road and take another long path. It would always make my heart sink just thinking about that incident itself.
Oh. Was that the shortest story ever? No, just kidding. Let's see. There's something outside that you don't know about. Ooh, I'm getting goosebumps.
Sometimes you never truly know what is out there.
Oh, come on.
I worked in a warehouse for minimum wage. There was this dark corner in the very back of the warehouse, which every employee knew about. It was an unnaturally cold place with stale air. I felt like it was alive, watching closely over your shoulder.
Oh my gosh.
Despite having an old factory light hanging directly over the shelves, it was never a bright place. My job was to stand and scan all of the items on the shelf. along with pick lists, which were printed lists with items on them. The models would wear these items, and then I would put them back where they belonged. It was a Wednesday, and my team leader handed me a pick list of items for the models to wear. It was my job to get them to the studio for fitting as soon as possible. A hat, check. Some shoes, check. And then the third item, sweater. When I arrived at the dark corner, there was a woman standing near one of the shelves. I could hear her breath shaking as she was hunched over it,
So pretty much she's
scanning
like,
each item as quickly as she could. Occasionally, I would hear her say the F word as she scanned the many items, trying to find the one she was looking for. I looked at my pick list
That's what
and
she was saying.
searched for the shelf number. At every step, my body would come closer and closer to the very corner of the warehouse. I could feel something staring at me. It felt like they were a foot
There's your
behind
thumbnail.
me. I looked at the shelf and took another few steps towards it. The deep beating in my chest grew, and the urge to look behind me became the only thought in my head. I finally looked. There, behind the woman, was a manly figure with long arms coming out of his back. The arms dripped with black smoke.
Slender Man.
The beating inside of my chest grew louder and louder until I could even hear it. She didn't even notice. She didn't even see it. But I could see her arms shaking.
Just ate you guys.
The figure wrapped his arms around her and pushed her body into his, as though his chest could feel hunger. I didn't know what to do. It's not like she could see it. How am I supposed to tell her to run if she can't even see him? Frozen, I stood there, watching this thing wrap himself around my coworker. Then he saw me. He saw me looking right at him and noticed I could see him too. I looked down quickly at my pick list, hoping he would believe I didn't see him. If I just finish this thing, I can go. The number for the shelf was JH243, which was the last shelf at the end. I was about 5 feet away from JH243.
Guys, clearly that's Slender Man, but this isn't a real story, I can tell, because Slender Man was actually created for a Photoshop contest. Yeah,
When I lifted my gaze up
Mind
from the
blown.
ground,
probably not.
long, slender fingers slowly crept over the corner of the shelf. The corner grew shadows darker
And there
than
was a
anything I could
shadowy
have
fog
ever
around
imagined.
it. Ooh,
Following the
spooky.
fingers was an inhuman head, ever so slowly creeping itself around the shelf. I had to do this. I had to get the item as fast as I could so I could leave. Acting as though I didn't see him, my gaze locked on the shelf, and I grabbed the sweater I needed. One scan. It didn't work. I scanned again, and it didn't work. A black shadow encompassed me. I could see the top of his head, but his eyes didn't come second. He didn't have a face. It was just a pit.
Told
As
you.
fast as I could, I grabbed the item the woman was looking for and hurried her away. After that terrible incident, a few weeks later, I hosted a birthday party at my house. My guests kept saying they heard whispering and ended up fighting each other during a cookout. I brushed it off as people playing jokes until I was alone and doing the dishes another day, and I heard this constant whispering like someone whispering in my ear.
Give me
I
the
was so
soap.
scared and thought my boyfriend was playing a joke to scare me, but he was at work, and my sister was also at work. I hung up the phone and then went into the kitchen, and all the drawers were open. Later that day, I was cooking in the kitchen and my sister made a joke about the house being haunted. While she was talking, a cross fell off the wall all of a sudden. I placed it back on the wall and she made a joke again about it being a demon.
Jesus.
Then the cross
Jesus.
came off again.
Jesus.
And I told her not to worry about
Cause
it because
Jesus.
maybe the nail wasn't right and laughed it off. I placed the cross on a bookshelf nearby with its back on the surface. She was quiet after that until she made another joke to lighten the mood. The cross on the bookshelf, which was across from her, flew off horizontally. Weeks went on. I began seeing this shadow in the morning when I woke up. I ignored it because no way was that real. It was just my imagination. I didn't know where else to go, so I went to the church for help, telling them everything I was experiencing, but they said they couldn't help me. I tried sitting in the church, and all I heard was hissing. Literally, snakes hissing. Like it didn't want me to listen. Not only that, but I went from a positive, happy person to a grim, hateful, resentful girl. Merely wishing something happened to people was dangerous. My dad has been convinced to this day that I was possessed by a demon because of how much my personality changed. After that, I stopped accepting any guests. I started throwing up everything I ate and couldn't keep anything down until I was hospitalized for starvation. I just remember the day I felt so weak and called 911. I was scared. I felt like I wasn't going to be here for much longer. Then, all of a sudden, there was a light that told me it was okay. I never knew what it was. After that, everything was gone. I was there for 3 weeks with mental evaluations, and they said nothing was actually wrong with my mental health. I don't know what is out there, but that experience scared me. And this is what made me realize that something is out there.
What, Slendy Man? Whoosh, Slendy Man. Slendy Man gonna grab you, and Slendy Man gonna hum nom nom. Slendy Man going hum nom nom. Exactly. No. How long is this video? How did it get to 12 minutes? I swear I only watched 2 videos. Okay, show me how long. Oh, 7 minutes. Duh. Okay, bye.